Alright, so I think I'll get started here. So what's going on, everybody? Blood Moon Bobby here. I already see that Andre Para, or Para, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, has left a congratulatory comment. So thank you. I know that you dropped it off right, well, not right before, but before I did this stream today. So yeah, welcome to my 4th anniversary stream. It's literally been 4 years. God, I can't really believe it, since this channel became the Blood Moon Bobby YouTube channel. So for this stream, I'm basically gonna talk about the sort of, like, I guess you could say, like, the history of the channel and like my ideas. Hello there, White Bear Productions, how are you? Why did the OBS for whatever reason moved up the comments? But yeah, if you have any questions or thoughts on what I'm about to say in the stream, feel free to leave them. So since I don't talk about the origins of my channel like every single time I make a video, not that I think that would be of interest every time I make another news video on the Nintendo Switch or talk about the Owl House. I guess I'll talk about, like, where did the idea of the Blood Moon Bobby channel came from. I know for lots of people subscribe to the channel, it's really obvious, but I know there's people out there who ask me, especially people outside of the animation community, ask me, why did you pick the name Blood Moon Bobby? Because it sounds kind of creepy to them, but I'll explain. So, the YouTube channel name Blood Moon Bobby comes from Star versus the Forces of Evil, which is one of my favorite Disney Channel shows, and it's because in the show there's an episode called The Blood Moon Ball where a character named Marco Diaz, that's the character I'm cosplaying, ends up dancing with his best friend Star Butterfly, and it's basically it's one of the episodes that kind of suggests that they could have a romance with each other. And I named the channel after that specific episode, not only because I really like the episode and that I'm also a Starco shipper, but it's also like my way of like saying, I'm really devoted to talking about animation and gaming and film. So that was why I went with that channel name. And also because, like, I think of other channels out there that have really like aggressive names. Like I think of like Cinemassacre, the Angry Video Game Nerd, or Wrestling with Gaming, and I just really wanted to have a channel name that had my name included in it, because I know there's like channels out there, and I respect that, but I know there's certain YouTube channels out there that just go by their YouTube name and not by their first name, and I wanted to have like a fun name that also included like my name so that people wouldn't call me. So like if I called my channel like if I just called it the Blood Moon channel, I didn't want people calling me like Blood Moon channel. I wanted people to get to know my name. And before this channel became the Blood Moon Bobby channel, it was another channel called Kumite World, which was it was a channel where I discussed like a lot of news topics. Like I remember that was where we discussed hi there, Starco Butterfly, how are you? It's like I remember we talked about like me and my friends would talk about like all sorts of things like Brexit and MacBooks, and also we would talk about movies like Zootopia and Star Wars. But another reason I decided, there's honestly a lot of reasons why the channel, I wanted to like really change my channel into what it is now, the Blood Moon Bobby channel. One was that at the time I had a multimedia editor position at a newspaper, and even though I really liked the position and it taught me all sorts of skills in terms of video editing and photography, and that was where I got introduced to this idea that social media management could be a career, it was a pretty exhausting job, especially back then. I was not really good at like detaching myself from like all of like the more aggressive assignments of that job. Like I remember going to like campus protests and taking pictures and seeing all the people, being really angry and things like that. And I really wanted a break from that, and so I decided, hey, and which gets into another reason. That was because at the time, and this is not to diss like other YouTube channels that, if they don't want to talk about Star, I totally respect that. But it was also because I noticed a lot of like a cartoon YouTube channels were more so discussing like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. Like this was around the time when Cartoon Network was putting out really crummy shows like that Powerpuff Girls reboot, or Teen Titans Go, or when Nickelodeon um was perceived as this really greedy company that only cared about SpongeBob. So it was right around the time I was getting into those channels. But I noticed something missing. I noticed that these channels didn't really talk about shows like Star vs. the Forces of Evil. And so that was another reason why I figured it was a way to help my channel stand out. That, it would be like a place where it's like, hey people, I also like to talk about Star versus the Forces of Evil, as does Star Starkle Butterfly. I miss Star versus the Forces of Evil so much. Yeah. Oh, yeah, thank you. You said that I am amazing. So that was another factor as well. And so I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in the 4 years of running this YouTube channel, and I think this is honestly really, like, this is more of like a side hustle for me, but I think this is really good career advice for anybody that's about to go into the workforce. And that is, it's not a really good thing to be a jack of all trades. It's totally fine to have like multiple interests. Like I have many like interests outside of like cartoons and video games. I've talked about before how I really like watching car videos on YouTube's, and there was also very recently the Tokyo Olympics, and I've been an Olympics fan ever since I was a little kid. But I realized, even though it's really great to have all these interests, and when I started my channel, I started as a channel that discussed animation, film, technology, like covering like Apple events and the Consumer Electronics Show. And also down the road, for a time I also tried to discuss Olympic topics. What I learned about covering, like, when you have like way too much and you're biting off way more than you can chew, it kind of makes you not feel really honest about yourself, and also you're not giving yourself the space to, learn to cover, like, more so like become a sort of, I guess you could say, like a specialist. And thank you, Nick. Yeah, it's been a really amazing 4 years. When you start to kind of like, branch out like way too much and cover way too many topics, then you're not really giving yourself the space to really get really like good and have like a much better understanding of a couple of like topics that you're really good. It's kind of hard to explain, but I kind of liken it to how when I was learning social media in college, I was, doing things like social media, videography, photography, and even doing podcasting, because at the time I was really worried nobody was going to hire me after I graduated. But what I ended up realizing was I put way too much pressure on myself to be like good at way too many tasks, and it was to a point where it was very difficult to motivate myself to, like, do some training, like learn more about like my college skills, or things like video editing and all that. So I kind of took a, very similar approach. And so instead of like pressuring myself to having to learn about all these topics and feeling the need to cover so much, I basically learned to narrow it down to basically cartoons and video games. Every once in a while I do like to like step out of my like sort of comfort zone so that I could show like different sides of myself, kind of like how recently I've been talking about Olympic mascots because the Tokyo Olympics just happened. And once in a while I might mention like a interesting car video I saw in a stream, but for the most part it's been like talking about animation and video games. And I also just realized that it seemed like a lot of people much preferred when I do get to sit down and talk about like the latest on like the state of the Nintendo eShop, or the latest episode, or like the fate of the Owl House. Or I just recently did that stream with my friend talking about the Owl House and Amphibia Comic Con panels. So I figured, that kind of gave me that motivation to say, hey, I'm, allowed to, sort of make myself more specialized in those kind of interests. And so that's, one of the great things that I've learned. I don't have like an entire speech. I feel like I'm like at a university giving like a graduation speech. I just have notes here because there's a lot of things that I wanted to talk about in this stream. And so one of the things that I really wanted to do, speaking of one of the reasons why I learned to sort of narrow down my interests. Star Sarko Cosplay. It says, I love your cosplay. Thank you. My sister was actually the one who made the cosplay. I mean, there's so many reasons why the channel became the way it did. Like, even more than, like, I could, like, consciously think. Another reason why, too, was because I remember cosplaying as Marco at Anime Expo 2017, and I was actually really worried nobody was gonna like the cosplay. Not that my sister, like, she did a really amazing job. This is one of the best like things she's made for me. But it was just that I wasn't sure that do people know about like Star vs. the Forces of Evil and things like that. And I was surprised there was a lot of people at like Anime Expo 2017 who came up to me and said, I like your cosplay, or they would just like shout Marco's name because they wanted to take my picture of me. So I was like, oh hey, like people like this cosplay, so maybe I should keep this up. And yeah, Nick, I just noticed your message. You said, yeah, you don't have a clear focus if you try to do absolutely everything in the world. It's fine to have different interests, but it's better to narrow down YouTube content and streaming to one or two things. And also, and I think it's also really good career advice too, because I feel like, especially with how competitive jobs are, especially nowadays, with the coronavirus pandemic and people struggling to get jobs, one of the pressures I picked up from not just college, because like college taught me a lot about multimedia and what I could do with my career, but one of the things that I kind of got pressured to learn, when I was a little kid. I grew up in a family, as much as I love my family, I grew up in like a very academically driven family. Hi, Alan, how are you? Where it's the kind of family that was like, we want you to get into the best college, and if you go into like a lesser known state school, you're gonna end up on the street, and like look at your cousins who are like doctors and lawyers and things like that. So I think because of that, I had this sort of inherent pressure of, I have to learn as much as I can, so that, I could learn all these skills and get a good job. But what I learned recently, the problem with that mindset is that it leaves little time for me to like get good at like a certain like list, like, certain like, couple bit of skills that I could use at the job. And I think the other thing too, I was actually watching a YouTube video recently from this really amazing channel called Life After Layoff. If you need career advice, please go watch that channel. And the person in the video was saying that employers can tell if you're one of those jack of all trades, because it's basically the mindset of, okay, cool, all these skills, but which ones are the ones you're really, really, really good at. So I kind of wish somebody would have gave me that advice like way back in college, because I remember in college I was so like pressured to be good at what I was doing that I was honestly too intimidated to go job searching or finding an internship. So yeah, I honestly think it's one of the most important pieces of career advice that really anybody could learn. And also it's it's self-love. I sometimes feel like I'm going through what like Amity is going through in the Owl House, where she's learning that there's people out there where you don't need to please them in order to, get their, love and affection, just like how she was able to meet Luce, who gave her a chance even back when the two were, kind of enemies. It was just that, Luce thought that Amity was an awesome person, and it was enough, to make or want to be friends with Amity. So I honestly think that's really one of the big, not just YouTube advice, but it's one of the big pieces of career advice. Like, if I could travel back in a time machine and talk to my 2015 version of myself, who is really scared that nobody wants to hire me as a photographer, I would tell, like, 2015 me that. So, one of the big things that I've been asking myself, and I kind of realized this anniversary stream is kind of like talking about like career advice I've learned over the years from personal experience and all the amazing people who've helped me, is I remember going to one of the first career fairs I went to. This was back when I was a senior in college, and just sipping on my lemonade. And I met this, the head of marketing of my college. And I remember just kind of telling him, I think I was like, well, I'm not so good at this and this. And he told me, okay, you told me what you're not good at, but I want to hear what you are good at. And one of the reasons, Nick, what's up? Random question, but have you watched Netflix Castlevania or nah? No, unfortunately, I haven't really. I mean, if you enjoy Castlevania, that's awesome. I don't know. I didn't never really got into Konami's Castlevania series. Like I don't know. I guess it's just not my cup of tea. I tried playing Konami made a Castlevania game for the 3DS, but I never really got, I didn't really get into it. Maybe one of these days I'll try the Castlevania Lords of Shadow games that I think Hideo Kojima worked on. Like, I don't know, that kind of seems like more a game that's up my street. Like, maybe one of these days if it's on PlayStation Now, I'll check it out. But yeah, I always felt like the Konami franchise that I was able to get into the most, and even then I'm not very good at these games, or is the Metal Gear games, because I really like, I think the combat and the gameplay is some of the most creative I've seen in video games. I mean, yeah, there's other stealth games out there, but I really like how, especially Metal Gear Solid 3, how it works, this idea of you're playing this character who's going around, like, shooting, like, soldiers with a tranquilizer and apprehending them. And because it's not as it doesn't work as simple. It's not as simple as, oh, take out bad guys and you win. Like, you have to like, there's all sorts of ways in order to take out the bad guys, and also like interrogate them and ask them for hints, or even just the way that you fight the bosses, I think is really awesome. Like, I think of like a character. I mean, this is a tough boss fight, but I really like how it works. There's a character called the Fear, and like he's camouflaged, and you can't really see. You could kind of see him if you're just playing normally, but it's really tough to see him, and you're trying to shoot him down, but it's difficult because he's like camouflaged with his environment, and you also have to be careful that you don't like bump into traps on the ground. And there's like all sorts of ways to defeat this character. Like, you could put on these thermal goggles so you could see the character better and shoot him down, or I've learned this pretty neat trick where you could have Snake take the character Solid Snake take this fake death pill, and it knocks him out, and the Fear is tricked into thinking, oh, he's already dead. But you could wake up, and there you have the chance to shoot him down. So I really like the creativity behind the Metal Gear games. The control scheme in each game takes a while of getting used to, but I think that I could learn to get used to the control schemes. I've beaten MGS3 many times. Peace Walker, I'm getting my feet wet. I'm just starting to get my feet wet, and I've played a bit of MGS2 as well. But yeah, that's why MGS3 is up there as one of my favorite video games of all time. I know like some people don't like the 3DS version because it kind of has a very strange control scheme, and also the frame rate at times, especially when the action gets hectic, the frame rate kind of dips. But I honestly think, especially if you're used to playing like first-person shooters on portable consoles, it's the most easy to get acclimated to in terms of the controls. Because the thing about MGS3, this isn't a slam at MGS3. I'm just like speaking as somebody who's only played like shooters fairly recently. Its control scheme takes a while to get used to and can get pretty frustrating. I would say I'm not like an expert at the controls, but I've gotten used to it enough where I can beat like several of the bosses in MGS3. Like, I'm playing both the port they put out on the PS3 and also the Vita, and I'm getting used to the controls, so it just takes a minute to get used to. So that's one of the reasons why I really like the 3DS version, because it has the most approachable control scheme of the versions that I played. It's not the most polished by any means. Like, if you want the most polished version, go and see if you can play like the HD collection on the PS3, because the frame rate in that one is much better and the textures look a lot sharper. But yeah, oh my god, I am gushing about MGS3 again. This is what happens when I really like something and I can't shut up. Alan said, somewhere people in an alternate universe are asking Konami to re-release the Simpsons arcade game in modern consoles. I've heard of the arcade version, like, from the Angry Video Game Nerd. Do you think maybe someday it could get released on, like, the Nintendo eShop or one of those, like, the Super NES online collection for Switch, Alan? I mean, I don't know too well if it was ever ported to any consoles, but it kind of seems like on paper it could get released that way, but knowing Konami these days, unfortunately, I have some big doubts. The one Simpsons game I played was Simpsons Road Rage for the Xbox. I remember like having a good time driving around, and I think like Homer would say, "Get out of the way, jackass," and things like that. So I remember playing that on my friend's Xbox when I was a little kid. So yeah. Oh, wait, it was called Simpsons Hit and Run, excuse me, yeah. But, yeah, because I know that it's one of the more famous Simpsons games, so I think that would be awesome if there was a port released for the Switch. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because I know there's people out there who are like, the Switch gets way too many ports, but me personally, from kind of a selfish perspective, I wouldn't mind if, like, especially, like, because, like, I'm a person who grew up playing the Nintendo GameCube. I honestly want to see some GameCube games get ported to, or even Wii games. Like I've talked about before, I would like to see something like a Kirby Air Ride for Switch, or an Excite Truck for Switch, or what was that other one? Super Monkey Ball, which Sega is bringing that Super Monkey Ball compilation to Switch, although it's still kind of unclear to me if they're going to include. I would really like them to include like the original mini games of like Monkey Bowling from the first Super Monkey Ball, or Monkey Baseball from Super Monkey Ball 2. I played those two versions really recently on my original GameCube, and I actually had a blast. It made me wonder, it would be cool if those came to Switch one of these days. Nick said Switch ports are fine, though I agree there are a lot of Wii U ports. I mean, I get that, yeah, a lot of, like, Wii U ports got ported to Switch. One of the reasons why I'm kind of more okay with it, I don't buy every single port, like, I don't have Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, is that it gives me the chance to play, like, some of the Wii U games that I missed out on, like Mario Kart 8, for example. So to me, I'm basically of the mindset of, as long as Nintendo and other companies, they keep churning out games like Doom Eternal or Metroid Dread, then I'm okay with the ports. What I wouldn't be okay with is if it was just like if it was like a case where it was like 70% ports and only 30% were like all new games, then it would be just kind of ridiculous, because then if it was like, if it really was like that few amount of original games, then people would be missing out on like really fresh experiences with games like Super Mario Odyssey, or like, I was really happy when Doom Eternal came to the Switch. I personally still prefer Doom 2016, because I think the content is much more fun in Doom 2016, but I'm still glad that game came to the Switch. So I'm basically of the mindset of, as long as there's a balance and it's not like over like kill, where it's like way like 60, 70, 80% Switch ports, then I'm cool. Nick said Super Monkey Ball Deluxe on PS2 was my jam, but now that I'm older, the Xbox version of that game is better. Oh, wow. I never got to play that game since I didn't have a PS2 original Xbox. What about the Xbox version was better? And I also know that some stages from Super Monkey Ball Deluxe is coming to that compilate that Super Monkey Ball compilation. So I think that is really awesome. Um to kind of get back to what I was saying, I was talking about how when I was about to graduate college, I remember meeting this head of marketing at my school. And I remember just telling him, well, I'm not, I think I said something along the lines of, well, I'm not the best at this, this, and this. And he told me, okay, you told me what you're not good at, but can you tell me what you are really good at? And so over the last year, I've basically just been considering, how do I want my channel to stand out? What do I want people to know about Blood Moon Bobby? Because there are, a lot of channels out there that cover video game news, or, lots of channels out there that dive into cartoon news, or, fan theories and things like that. So, yeah, notice a couple more people coming in. Champion King Edgar, Neri Potion, Hi Rule. I hope I pronounced your name right. Hello, Dino Fighter 234. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my 4th anniversary. I was just talking about how I wanted to make my channel stand out there compared to other gaming and cartoon channels. And the way I approach that is I keep tabs with the first thing I do. I don't just like to watch video game or cartoon channels. I also like to look at my other interests, and this is where I think my other interests can come in, where maybe I don't talk about the Hyundai Santa Cruz, or maybe I'm not talking about the financials of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, but I like to take notes from other channels in terms of their presentation style, and in terms of how moderate their agenda is and presentation style. So that's why, even though channels like Redline Reviews or Geography Now aren't in the animation community, I still think there's a lot of really good things about them, to be really honest. I'll get back to comments after I've said, how I want my channel to stand out. And really, what I really want to do, and I started doing this on my website, is to share my passion of animation and video games with as many people as I can. I know another lesson I've learned is that you really can't please everybody and turn into this people pleaser, because then it's really difficult to differentiate your own goals from what do other people want out there. So something that I've learned is to really ask myself, what are some things that I personally feel really happy doing. And so that's where, when I say sharing my passion of animation and video games, comes in. And of course, I do this through objective reporting. I spend a lot of time researching whenever I do news videos, or if I'm reviewing a show or movie I like. If there's something that I don't like about them, I still talk about how I feel, just like I did with the Star versus the Forces of Evil finale. Not to open that tin of worms, but when I talked about that, I discussed not only what I didn't like about the finale, but I also gave credit to, the things that I did like this idea of Star now being free from being a princess. Spoiler, she can live a much more free life and things like that. Personally, for me, I don't want this channel to just be a channel for I don't want this channel to be one of those where it's for animation and gaming fans, by animation and gaming fans, because then I feel like you're not only closing off your audience from potential viewers, but the other problem I have with that is you could honestly learn a lot of lessons from stepping out of your comfort zone and watching channels that may not be in your field. So I honestly, that's one of the reasons why I like watching channels outside of the cartoon community. And honestly, one of the challenges I've had, like as I started to get older and I started to notice a lot more things through life experience, I talked a bit about this in my previous stream that I did with my friend about the Comic-Con panel, is that I don't know about everybody else out there, but because of like, all the life experience I've had and how I've started to consider the emotions of others and like I've gotten much better at analyzing stories. One problem that can come from that is where you start to kind of like over empathize with like the characters in the show and take like things like, especially because like shows these days tend to be a lot more intense with really heavy stories. It hits differently, and in my case I think it hits me like way harder than it should. Not that it's any fault like of the creators. I realize that it's just part of growing up. Like I think back to a lot of like shows and movies I watched as a kid, and I started to realize just how terrible a father Ozai was to Zuko in Avatar. Or, I think back to like the movie Chicken Run, which was one of the first movies I saw in theaters. Like, if I saw that scene where Mrs. Tweedy, I mean, it's off screen where she kills the one chicken, but I would have had that thought of, whoa, that's like, really intense, especially coming from Aardman, who's known for being like a much more comedic studio. But it's, part of what they want to do. They wanted to tell a more serious story. And so I have to take that step back and realize, hey, this is just, this is entertainment. This is meant to be fun. You're supposed to like get into the excitement and not take it as though you're the actual character being there. Like, you don't have to take it that personally. Because I remember when I watched the Star vs. the Forces of Evil finale, my sister, like, I kept talking about, like, that for like 6 months. And my sister is like, why are you talking about it as if you're the one who destroyed magic? And when she said that to me, I realized that, certain things had to change, because it was making it, because if I kept things the way they were, then it just made it more difficult for me to get interested in watching more episodes, because I would be too intimidated to tune in. And also another show where I had a similar problem, I like the show too, is Infinity Train. When I think of Tuba's death, now I mean, I don't know how younger me would take it, but I probably wouldn't have taken it as and I just realized that my computer was not plugged in. Hold on a second. Just get my charger. Oh boy. Yeah, I am making this mistake. Which, actually, come to think of it, it's another lesson that I've learned, like, running this YouTube channel, in that it's up to me if I want to express the problem as like something that's really terrible. Cause like I used to like really beat myself up with like, these kind of like imperfections or things that I didn't do. But now, as you saw, I just kind of like took it lightly, where it's like, oh, here I go again. I forgot to plug in my laptop. And it wasn't that I shouldn't have gotten, I mean, I didn't really need to like get angry or beat myself up, because I mean, even if my laptop did die, I could always just start the stream and pick up where I left off. And yeah, Dino Fighter 234, yeah, that tuba death scene, oh my god, with Simon, like, letting out that electricity and dropping tuba down the train track, it's like, Jesus Christ, that is intense. It's like the scene where Scar kills Mufasa, but like even more intense. And I was like, it was so like hard to take in for me. I stopped watching Infinity Train for like 6 months, and the problem with doing that and procrastinating was that I could never let go of that like scene. Like I kept like, it wouldn't, like, it was still in my head when I would go to work. It was like the last thought in my head when I went to sleep, and it was just, yeah, I mean, with things like that, and just how I really like, I kept pushing myself back when I didn't really need to. I had to like kind of take a step back and, help do some things to help me get through these shows, because the reason I think I still watch these shows, even though I have those kind of moments, I mean, even with like Owl House, I just watched the Eclipse Lake episode, and I got that feeling too when I was watching those fight scenes between Amity and Hunter. I had to take a step back and like, help myself and, get myself together and like sort of relax and like get into the excitement and take these shows in as like a form of entertainment and something that's fun and enjoyable. I want to watch these cartoons and enjoy these stories. I don't want to have this like persistent fear and take it as though I'm on like the Infinity Train or I'm like Hunter or Amity. So I have to like, kind of realize that, it's completely unnecessary. So that's why lately I've talked a lot about how like before I watched like a show and like something that I've gotten a piece of advice I've gotten from friends, including my cousin, is something that I could do is watch something that's like comforting afterwards. Like, and I remember like my friend Gabby was like, hey, you want to watch like episode from another Disney show? And so that's why like nowadays like I'll often watch like car commercials, because the thing about car commercials is that yeah, they're, they could be like, really intense and crazy. Like I remember there's like one for the Subaru WRX STI rally car, and it was just this like rally driver like swerving the car, and it was so crazy where the passenger kept saying, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit," and things like that. And I do this as a way to kind of remind myself that watching these intense shows, in a way, it's like driving a crazy car like a Subaru WRX STR or an Acura Integra. But the thing about them is those drivers, they still have a lot of fun, driving at those really incredible speeds or like, experiencing like the handling. I know I sound like kind of a novice as I say this, but it's like it's still meant to be fun. So I kind of do that as a way to kind of remind me. Or another one of my favorite things to do is to like watch like either like a really slapsticky like comedic scene where like something is going on that's all wrong, but it's humorous. And that's why I felt like I had a revelation when I came across that scene from Fresh Prince where Will is messing around with like this flambe, and it goes completely wrong. Like, he just freaking ignites this pan, and like, he's doing all these like pointless punches and kicks, and he tries to resolve the situation, but only makes things worse. And he's going, what's going on here? Yeah, but yeah, that was why I felt that I really need to take a step back, or like, when I look at that scene from Fresh Prince where here where Will would just be completely freaking out and like doing like all these like things where it's like it's a a negative thing that's going on, but at the same time in the way he's been handling it, it is still like comedic. Like, you get what I'm saying, where it's like it's a I mean, of course, for Will's character it's a very stressful situation, but it's not a case where it's like a matter of life or death, and it's still like it's still meant to be like a comedic fun scene to watch, if you know what I mean. So yeah, so that's kind of one thing that I've been doing, like every time I watch an Owl House episode. My cousin recommends that like I actually do that after I watch the episode, but it helps me to do it before and after, because if I don't like watch those like kind of comedic things beforehand, then what happens is, oh, what was I gonna say? Then it's tougher for me to then it's tougher for me to like want to like get into those episodes and watch them. So and I know it's kind of tricky to explain, but I noticed that like these days that's what a lot of my friends do whenever they watch intense episodes of a show. And I hope one of these days it becomes like much easier for myself to ground myself when I get into those shows without feeling the need um to feel like I have to go through this process, and that I could just enjoy these shows on their own, because I know it would make it much easier for me to do content for this channel. um and so yeah, so those are really, I mean, come to think of it, I've learned a lot of lessons, even just talking about like them in this stream. I've learned like all these like lessons of covering um through YouTube, no, of also of all this career advice in terms of like how I should motivate myself. And another lesson I've learned is that in some ways it may not even be like a crummy employer that doesn't give you that chance. It could also be like myself. I wasn't giving myself that chance because I thought that nobody was gonna watch me or like hire me and things like that. And so yeah, but still, I'm really glad that I've been on this ride for the last 4 years. I mean, it's interesting because like I was even surprised, like pleasantly surprised, that I was able to get this following, because I wasn't really sure if anybody would watch my content, because back when I started doing this YouTube channel, I wasn't really going in thinking that I was going to gain a following. Instead, what I was thinking was that oh, I just want a place to talk about animation and video games. Like, I was even surprised that I was able to get to 100 subscribers, and now I'm sitting at like 590 subs, about to hopefully sooner than, and I'm thinking that I could maybe hit that 600 sub count. But the only way to do that is I just have to keep on like going on. I mean, and I think that's why what was I saying? That, I mean, I know another thing I like to watch to motivate myself. I think that's why I was glad when the Tokyo Olympics came, because in all honesty, the Olympics are like the one thing that whenever they come on, I get like super excited and just go completely, maybe not stan, like I'm definitely not an Olympic stan, but it's like that sort of fanboyish mode where it's like I can't stop talking about it. And like I've even done some like fan art with the Olympic mascots, and so that's why lately you've seen on Twitter that I've been like posting fan art of like how the next Summer Olympics is going to take place in Paris. So I made a fan art that had the Olympic rings, that had the Tokyo Olympic mascot Mirai Toa, and also the two French mascots. I'm probably butchering the pronunciations, but they are Chus from the Grenoble 1968 Winter Olympics, and Magique from the Albertville 1992 Winter Games. And like, yeah, so I've also been like watching, and even though the Tokyo Olympics, have concluded, I still like to watch a lot of footage from like past Olympics as a way to motivate myself and get me that feeling, especially like if it's an athlete I'm really rooting for, like Katie Ledecky or Michael Phelps. It's still exciting to watch them and be like, oh, and relive that feeling of, oh, are they gonna win? Are they gonna medal? Are they gonna win? And that sort of thing. And so it's still good fun to watch, like, I remember the other day I was watching one of Michael Phelps's races from the Beijing 2008 Olympics, where today I was looking at some of the luge events from the Pyeongchang 2018 Winter Olympics in South Korea, which was really good to me because I actually didn't get to see too much of the Pyeongchang Olympics because I was too busy at the time to watch, because like I was going through college and it was my senior year, and yeah, I only got to really see the opening and closing ceremony of that Olympics. And yeah, so yeah, just that the Olympics have also become another source of that sort of like comforting feeling and that place where I like could like go and relax. So yeah. Um, Nick, you said I gotta watch more of your recent vids because I missed most of them. TBH. Don't feel too bad. You could take your time to catch up. These days I haven't really like found much news to talk about. Now that the Olympics are over, I'm gonna focus much more on doing reviews in the meantime. Like I still want to check out that movie Mitchell's versus the Machines, and also I still got to get caught up on Amphibia because I've only seen 2 episodes of that show, and I know things get pretty intense. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think over time, I just hope that over time it becomes much more of a habit that I could just like kind of dive into the show and get into more of the fun of it rather than feeling like, it's like my biggest phobia, because I don't want like watching like TV or movies to be like my biggest phobia. I want to dive into the stories. I want to see why people, love these shows and films this much. I mean, and another thing that I wanted to say is that when I say I wanted to like share my passion of animation and video games, I don't want to do it. I kind of mentioned it before, but I don't want this channel to become a place where it's like it's only for animation and video game fans by animation and video game fans and that sort of thing, because I don't consider it a success when I can sit through like an episode of Infinity Train or Owl House and be like, oh hey, I watched this really intense show. What I consider more so a success is when I'm able to help somebody like overcome like their fears of public speaking and like help them talk about their honest thoughts on a show or movie. Um, and it really does me good like when I get messages like that, because like I grew up as like a kid who mumbled way too much. I remember I was supposed to do a raffle at like my middle school's broadcasting awards, and like at the time I was a very mumbly kind of person, so I was just like, and the winner is and nobody could understand what I said. It's funny because like when I talk to people like all from my life, they get me clearly, but it's like that one time when I had to go up on stage with a microphone, people are like, what is this kid talking about? So yeah. And another thing that I consider a major success too is when I'm able to get people from outside of the animation and video game community to check out my videos. I mean, that was why I was glad, because I remember I was visiting a family friend of mine um, who wasn't sure why I called this channel Blood Moon Bobby, and like she was saying, "Ooh, that kind of sounds like a very intimidating name," and I was able to explain to her the reason it was called that, and to say that I'm not the only channel that goes for those kind of names. And and I was glad that when we ended that conversation, she said, I'm glad I got to know you better, and you seem like a very down to earth person. Or I actually found out that some of my relatives even watch my videos. If my relatives in Chicago are watching this, hi. My aunt like flew in from Chicago recently, and she said, I'm glad you're getting out of your comfort zone, and I really like watching your videos. And that meant a lot to me, because in my family I felt like I'm a bit of an outsider, because I'm one of those kids that didn't go into like the medical field or like became a lawyer, or like what my sister is doing in law school, because like I struggled a lot in school. I struggled in like math and science classes, whereas my sister was, was much more of an academic student than me. So whenever those kind of things happen where I could help somebody like, speak up, or like introduce somebody from outside the community, and like, talk about, and like I could tell them, why I enjoy what I do. For me, that is better than like any like kind of show or movie than I can review, to be honest. I mean, Nick, would you say, I feel you, man. The Olympics get me hype, maybe not as much as you, lol, but yeah, I love watching the Olympics. And yeah, over the years, my interest from the Olympics went from just watching them on TV and to I started learning about like the host countries and like learning about like potential future cities. Like right now there is like a big question mark about where are the 2030 Winter Olympics going to be held. There's like some of the cities that are interested are Vancouver, Canada, Sapporo, Japan. There's a bid where France, Spain, and Andorra are working together, and also Salt Lake City. So I really like learning about those kind of bids and like thinking about which of these places could be a good host city for 2030 and things like that. I mean, I'm not making any promises because, like, I've never been to an Olympics, even though I really want to. Um, Something I really want to do, is, my camera's too far out of reach. I would even just like to, like, go to, like, maybe the Olympic marathon or cycling and, like, go and, like, take pictures of, the events there. I mean, for me, that would be, like, a dream come true, which it might be because the next Olympics to be held in the States is going to be the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028. And I really hope that I can go, especially because I have this cap here. Does this look good on me when... I don't know. I look kind of... I don't know. I think I'm going to take my mask off for this portion of the stream. My dad gave me this cap, which was, promoting the 1984 Summer Olympics in LA, and he actually got to go there. He said that he watched track events at the 84 Olympics in LA. So, yeah, I mean, I would really like to be there myself, too, in 28 when the games come back to Los Angeles. Especially because, like, I know people personally who've been to Olympics. Like, I had an internship professor in college who went to the 1976 Olympics in Montreal in Canada, and also where she watched track events too. And I also have one of the cosplayers I follow went to the Vancouver 2010 Olympic Games, also interestingly in Canada, which I guess I mean it's what happens when because Canada is like literally a country next door to the north, so of course it would make sense that like I know people that have been to like Olympic Games in both the States and in Canada. What was I going to say? Yeah, or even like when I go to this like swap meet near where I live, it's actually held in the same city, one of the cities that's going to hold some venues for the 2028 Olympics. I go there and there's quite a few people selling merch from like the 1984 Olympics. So, there's clearly people that are still, really happy that the games were held in 84. And something I learned recently is that one of the reasons why the 84 Summer Olympics in LA was so popular was because of how much of a financial success it was and how not too many venues were built and it made a profit, especially at a time when the 3 Summer Olympics prior had some major issues. Like the 72 Olympics in Munich had the Munich Massacre. The 76 games in Montreal went way over budget. I remember watching the CNN video where like a citizen of, I think somebody who lives in Montreal said that they spent like 30 years like paying for like how that games went over budget. It's even called like the Montreal Olympic Stadium even has the nickname the Big O, not only because it's shaped like an O, but because of like how much it costed. And so I imagine the 76 Montreal Olympics are kind of seen as like the nobody wants to be the next Montreal and things like that, which I would still like to go to Montreal. It seems like a really nice city and I really want to visit Quebec. Yeah, I think it would be nice to like go visit the Olympic Stadium there. I mean, I don't know if I could go inside, but like if I could take a selfie outside of the stadium, I think that would be really awesome. And then the other Olympics at the time that was seen as kind of like had its issues was the 1980 Olympics in Moscow. Not only because that was the one Olympics the U.S. boycotted, but it was also um, well, actually, yeah, just the boycott. I heard at the time it had like a very low turnout for countries because of that boycott. Dino Fighter 234 said more like the big oops. So yeah, I mean, which stinks because I think it would be really awesome if another Olympics came to like Montreal or Quebec. I really like Olympics where it's held in the city where it takes place like they like it's held in a city where you wouldn't really think of it, whether it's a really small community like Olympic Valley 1960 or because I think when people think Montreal, they think of this place where it gets like really rainy and snowy. I remember watching like the introduction for like the official Montreal 76 film, and like the stadium is just like the roof is like covered in snow, and it's like you're thinking, whoa, a Summer Olympics could be held there, which yes, it was held there. So I don't know, because like it's the kind of thing where it's like in my heart, I'm like, oh, I hope the Olympics come back to Montreal someday. I want to see Canada host another Summer Olympics. But another part of me is like, if they do, better not cost too much. So, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. This is what I mean when I say that, like, talking about the Olympics kind of brings out this, like, inner fanboy in me, because, like, I have to, like, separate, everything I discuss, I have to, like, separate, like, my sort of fanboyism from, like, my objective thoughts, in order to, like, help me talk about, things much more reasonably. So, yeah, so yeah, here I go again talking about the Olympics a lot. But yeah, as of right now, I am really glad with how the YouTube channel is turning out. One of the really big obstacles, honestly, it's funny to think that like running a YouTube channel would have obstacles during a pandemic, since technically speaking, I could make news videos from home. But what honestly made it really difficult in terms of sub growth, if I'm being honest, is there aren't as many opportunities to interview like artists or creators, because something I've learned from like running, even though like I'm really glad how we're coming to with 590 subscribers. What I've learned from like running a channel with a relatively small sub base, I mean, because when I say small, I mean that I don't have a channel that has like a million subs. To me, that's the definition of a big YouTube channel, is that it's much harder to interview like artists or actors, and that's why I think it really helped me when I got to interview Darren Nefsey, because I mean the way I did that was I think I tried messaging Darren Nefsey once on Instagram, but it didn't go well. Not that it didn't go well, but she didn't get back to me. And I think the difference is that when I met her in person, she was like, "Oh yeah, we could do an interview." Um, was that if I just messaged her online, then I'm just another Star fan. But if I'm like going to see her with like my friends and saying, hey, I got this camera here, I run a YouTube channel, then she could see in person like all these things coming together, and it adds up that, oh, I, traveled all this way out here to meet you. Not that like I met her at like the Gallery Nucleus. It's not too far from my house, but it's not exactly like a walk down the street. It's like a 30 to 45 minute drive from where I live. But because she could see all this, like like this person coming to meet her who traveled a bit of a distance, who has like a camera and YouTube channel, then it makes much more sense. And I think that's why we've been able to interview people like Darren Nefsey or Eden Shearer or Adam MacArthur or like the Invader Zim crew. So I hope one of these days that we could add like maybe it would be cool someday if I could like interview like the Owl House crew or like the Infinity Train crew or something like that, because like I really want to meet especially people like Mae Whitman, who plays Amity, because like I grew up like seeing Mae Whitman play characters in things like Avatar, The Last Airbender, or The Owl House. Like I was pleasantly surprised that, oh my god, she's playing a character in Owl House. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So it would be cool to one day meet her. Something I realized lately is that even though I consider myself pretty good at like handling getting starstruck, I will say it's much more difficult for me if it's something like a live stream where like people can like come in and chat to the creators, or things like that. Because those are the times when like my inner fan was like, oh my god, I really want to meet this person, and things like that. And I will admit, even to this day, like when I get chances to meet Darren FC, my heart rate starts like going up like really crazy. As Eric Andre might say, it's like doing a Slipknot drum solo. I can't do what he does, but you get the point. Like, yeah, I get starstruck and get that kind of envious feeling of, oh, I really want to meet this person. And I sort of get that feeling too, where it's like, man, if I don't meet this person, I'm gonna feel like a loser. It's times like that where I have to like catch myself and like go from like fanboy mode to my sort of inner journalist, where like, okay, I'm here to interview this person because, you work on the show, and, I think I know some people who really, really want to meet you. And I think that would explain why, whenever we do those interviews, why it would do, those videos tend to do really well. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still like to meet them as a fan too, and like show them like whatever fan art that me and my sister come up with. I mean, heck, I don't know if you all have seen this, but I recently kind of did an Owl House fan art that includes an Olympic mascot, but it fits really well with the Owl House. That is I don't know why I'm suddenly getting like a really itchy chest. This fan art right here, it's not really coming up super well in the video, but basically what's going on here is this is the Blood Moon logo that my sister drew, inspired by, again, Marco Diaz from Star vs. the Forces of Evil, created by Darren FC. And let me see if I could turn on the brightness and maybe you could see it better. The talisman I picked out for my character is this Olympic mascot. This is Lecky, who's one of the mascots from the 1998 Olympic Games in Nagano, Japan. Which, by the way, in terms of like pronouncing Nagano, I actually first thought it was pronounced Nagano, because I know people who have the last name Nagano, and that's how like my family pronounces it. But my sister recently told me she pronounced Nagano in like that way, like similar to the family friend, the way they say it. And my dad, who was, he was born in Japan, came to the U.S. when he was a, kid. He told her that no, it's pronounced Nagano, like how they say it on like TV, like during like when CBS aired the Nagano Olympics. So yeah, I've gotten used to saying that. But anyway, yeah, I think the reason I picked Lecky was because, with a show like The Owl House, it's in the show's name. Like, one of the main characters is known as the Owl Lady, and she goes around with a staff that has an owl talisman. So I was thinking, especially because, I really enjoy the Olympics, and, I live by its message of, like, bringing people together and determination. I was like, hey, it just so happens that one Olympic mascot is an owl, and so... I wanted to use this character, Lecky. This is actually an older version of the Olympic motto. They recently changed it just in time for the Tokyo Olympics. Let me see if I could pull up the updated version of that drawing. might have to pull it out of my iPad. Yeah, White Bear Productions, Eric Andre is cool. Honestly, Eric Andre is like, one of the few people I watch on Adult Swim these days. Let me see if I got it on my iPad. Actually, I have it posted on my Instagram page, so I could pull that up. But yeah, if anybody else has any thoughts on the YouTube channel and in terms of what I can improve, or if there's something that you want me to cover, you could let me know. I'm always open to suggestions. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. And let me turn down the brightness a bit. And I updated it because the International Olympic Committee, or IOC, they've now added a fourth word to the Olympic motto. So the previous motto was in English, it's faster, higher, stronger. But now they've added a fourth one, I presume because of the pandemic, which is together. So it's now faster, higher, stronger, together. If you watch the Tokyo opening ceremony, after the Parade of Nations, they actually put the motto on like the floor of the stadium where it says faster, higher, stronger, together. And I thought that was really cool. So for this version, I added the Latin version of the motto to the staff. And the reason the Blood Moon logo is saying bonjour is because the next Summer Olympics is taking place in Paris, which I don't know what it is, but like when they were showing that part of the Tokyo closing ceremony where they showed that preview for Paris and they were showing all those people outside the Eiffel Tower waving the flags, and they had that message that said merci Tokyo, I hope you like my French, which means thank you, Tokyo. I thought that was really awesome. And I don't know, it just made me wish that, like, man, if there wasn't a pandemic, I really wished I could travel to Paris and, like, take some really good street photography photos there and maybe try some of the food. But, yeah, yeah, there I go, like, explaining, one of the fan art that I've drawn. So yeah, it's all really amazing. Trying to think of what else to say about my YouTube channel's 4th anniversary. Just my iPad here and see if I have any last minute notes. Nick, you said that. I agree. Eric Andre is cool. Yeah, actually, to both Nick and who else mentioned White Bear Productions, what is your favorite skit from the Eric Andre show? I know I'm kind of going off topic, but this is meant to be more of a celebratory video, so I'm really down for anything. So yeah, to you guys, what is your favorite Eric Andre skit? There's honestly like way too many for me to name. One of my favorites recently is there is actually, I think my favorite skits have to be the Eric on the Street. Two of my favorites from Eric on the Street is there's one where he's walking around like New York City with these mannequins and getting into like all sorts of trouble with them, like slapping around people and like going into this like a video store. There's one part where like he goes in the middle of the street and blocks this car with the mannequin and say, I hate myself, I want to die, kill me, and things like that. So it's just like, I think a lot of the comedy comes from just how, like, I'm just amazed how much trouble he can get into with those mannequins. And like, when he goes into like, I think it's a video store, and the owner presumably is telling him to leave, and he gets stuck with the mannequins on the door, and he's like, I can't, I'm stuck. And like he falls over and says, I really am stuck. And another one is there is a version of the skit where he's walking down the street and unable to find people to interview. Like, he scares off these two ladies, and there's this other like person who like throws Eric's microphone, and Eric starts like, he just snaps and starts saying, it's saying, "This is fuck you TV," and like you see a logo that says "FU TV," and he starts spouting the F word, and he's like, "Stop filming me!" And he just goes completely berserk and trying to get away from his like camera person, and gets close to cars saying that he's gonna kill himself. I mean, go watch the skit. I'm making it sound scary, but it's like you go watch the skit, and that's where a lot of the humor comes in. Like, just watching, Eric, like, rage and flip out, and he ends with his famous bird up. So, yeah. I also like the skit that he does on the subway. I remember there's a particular one I came across where, like, he's trying to, like, hand out, like, these noodles, like, Chinese food to these people on the subway, and they're not, like, they're completely aggressive, like, slapping away the noodles and, like, telling Eric to, to, like, get out of the way and saying, no, we don't want your food and that kind of stuff. I guess for me, I'm just kind of, like, amazed just how, like, the crazy it gets, and how like angry these people like can get. Yeah, I think this is why they say, it's always like, it's not really a good idea to like explain a joke, because not only does it kill the joke, but also I'm making it sound like, Eric is like some kind of like a psychopath, even though, it's part of what he does. White Bear Productions just said, damn, which one were you talking about? But yeah, it's really just, I think I like the Eric Andre show as much as I do, because it's honestly the perfect show to watch when you're like really stressed out at the end of the day, and you just want to watch like this comedian just go completely like berserk and do all these really unpredictable kind of jokes that just completely catch you off guard. Which makes sense to me, because like, I think of like, when I think of like Eric like running onto his set and just breaking everything and beating everybody up, like I feel like that sums up a lot of people's like daily frustration, like their daily grind with like their job or whatever. So to see a person like just completely like lose it and go around destroying his set and like making all these weird jokes to people, it's like the epitome of like their relief, or like instead of like the people watching his show doing themselves, are watching this comedian just completely losing it, So yeah, I think that explains why I think a lot of people really like the Eric Andre show. Or when he was at the Democratic National Convention and does the "let me in." So Nick said, okay, I'm going to watch the Subway skit after this stream. Yeah, there's quite a few Subway skits. I don't know if you've seen any of them, Nick, but what are some of them? I think of, for example, of like the one where he's like, Eric is like a centaur and he's dropping cakes, or this other one where he pretends to be this pissed off mailman who's like, I'm done with this mail. I hate all mail, and like rips up this like electric or cable bill, and like supposedly steals this bit of money from like this birthday card. Or the Fruit Loops one is probably one of the more infamous ones, where he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have some bad news. I did not get the job from Fruit Loops. My body is now your communion. Please eat from me." And he has like this cone on his head, and he's pouring like cereal and milk, and like it's spilling all over the place. One person on the subway is like really like mad, and he's is like, "What's your problem?" And Eric's like, "Don't you care?" And just completely in character. Yeah, Nick said yes. The DNC and RNC ones, those are great. I mean, it's just amazing how like Eric was able to stay in character, come to think of it, especially in like the RNC one with like all those people coming at him. Yeah, I mean, probably one of the weirder moments from the RNC when he's at the Republican National Convention is when that guy comes up to Eric saying, "You're not Martin Luther King! You're not!" So Yeah, I don't know. It's just like the Eric Andre show is just like the epitome of like just like great like out of control weirdness. I noticed somebody came in, BTS Half Life Gary Mod says hello there. Um, Nick said, gonna watch the Centaur costume one first and then the Fruit Loops one after. Yeah, especially the Fruit Loops one, but just how catastrophic it gets is it's honestly I think, one of the funniest skits to come out of the Eric Andre show. And you can find it on YouTube. I believe Adult Swim UK, I think. I could double check for you, posted a compilation of many of the subway bits. So yeah, I honestly think that's one of the best skits to come out of the Eric Andre show. And I give a lot of credit. Honestly, my sister Penny introduces me to a lot of the shows that I've become attached to. She was the one who introduced me to Avatar and also South Park and now the Eric Andre show. Um, one of the first results I see is Eric Andre's Time to Scream bit. It's from the 5th season where out of nowhere he's just like, it's time to scream. And he just starts screaming and like his band is like celebrating and he kisses the guest and it's just like, what the heck? It's just like it's so random. And I also remember coming across another one where he's like, first question, and he's just screaming. I'm sure my sister is like, what is he going on about? And things like that. So yeah, but the surprising thing about Eric Andre, not that I assume he's like this in his in real life, but I remember watching like the making of season 5. Somebody has a question. Have you seen Monster High? No, but I've heard lots of people talk about that. Did Phil Lord and Chris Miller work on that? I think I heard somewhere that Phil Lord and Chris Miller of Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street fame worked on that show. But yeah, but yeah, as I was saying, the amazing thing about Eric Andre is I remember watching the behind the scenes of the 5th season, and it's amazing to me, like, how carefully, like, planned out these things are, and how, like, Eric is, like, he comes off as, like, very professional in terms of, like, the way he talks to, his crew and how he prepares for the show and things like that. They even showed a pretty, like, a scary bit where Eric gets hurt, practicing like I think they were actually shooting one of the intros and he hurt his head and he's like, oh, that's what he calls a popcorn, and like his crew is checking it out. He even has to go to like a hospital to like get it checked. So yeah, it's really amazing to me, like, how, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's really cool, like, how this is all prepared. I guess for me it's so interesting because of like how wild and wacky the Eric Andre show is. And oh my god, this one just came to me right now, like, or the Mike Penis skit where he pretends to be like a bouncer and he's trying to get into these clubs. There was even like this one time where like he's trying to convince this bouncer to let him in, and the bouncer like kicks him in the nuts, which was a complete surprise to me. Or this other time where he's like getting kicked out of this nightclub trying to get in, and he's like, do I have to call Tiesto? And he's like, hey Siri, I don't want to activate Siri on my phone, but he's like Siri, call T and things like that. And so, I mean, just if you really want to watch a show where you can just completely turn your brain off and just let go of like all that stress, but you don't want to, but you presumably don't want to get in trouble with the law, just go watch the Eric Andre show on like Hulu or Adult Swim. I remember like hearing the one time he got arrested was for it's funny, it's not one of those skits where it's like super elaborate and he's wearing a costume. Instead, it's this one where he like pretends to be like a school student, where he's like, hey guys, vote for me for class president, and I'll put beer in the water fountains and things like that. And he's just escorted out by a police officer, and he's like, don't tase me, bro. and I heard that's like the one time he got arrested, and yeah, it's just nuts. Um, Nick said, "I'll watch the pizza safety skit too. This one looks really funny." I best not spoil the pizza safety one because that one, really leans on the element of surprise. Nick, have you seen the pizza ball one where he goes into a karate class with like this pizza ball and just completely pulls an Eric Andre? Yeah. But yeah, I dare not spoil the pizza safety one because if I explain what happens in that one, then that's going to kill off a lot of the comedic energy. Which, speaking of ones that really lean on the element of surprise, have you seen the Seinfeld one? The Seinfeld skit? Taking a bit of a lemonade break there. Wait, pizza ball? Nah, but I'll try to find it. Yeah, that one doesn't lean. It's another one of those where he just kind of goes around and does weird stuff to people. It's not one where it like catches you off guard, which honestly, my favorite skits in the Eric Andre show tend to be the ones that really catch me off guard, or where he goes to like really like strange lengths, like that one intro where it looks like Eric just completely gave up and he's like attached to a cable and they're just like knocking him around his set and he's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he just like has like, seems to have like, he's just like dead inside. We're just like, eh, and he's like tearing up curtains, but he does it in like that unenthusiastic tone of voice where it's just like, eh, or was he doing it in that one? But yeah. Nick said, "I think I did watch the Seinfeld skit once. I gotta watch it again though." Okay, wait, I found the pizza ball one. I'll watch it after stream. There's just tons of like all these really funny skits. I mean, I would say not every skit on the Eric Andre show. It's not that I'm saying that like, oh, everything he turns out is comedic gold. Like, I think I tend to be the person that prefers, like, for me, I don't know if this is a thing with like Eric Andre fans, but I think I prefer the skits when he goes out into the street rather than the ones where he does like the interview with the unsuspecting celebrity. There's some funny moments, but when it's with the celebrity, I notice a lot of the time it's just like he does this like weird thing and the celebrity is just like looking at Eric weird and like not too much is going on. I think one of the funnier moments I remember is when he had Maria Menounos on the show and he asks her, he's like, "It's time to play These Are People," and these three people come out and he asks Maria Menounos, pick a person, and she picks one of the people, and this doesn't, really happen, of course, but they make it look like one of the people gets shot and they have to carry out that one person who supposedly got shot. Or I think another one of my favorite ones that takes place in the studio is the one where the guest has to like spin the wheel and the wheel just goes on and on and on and on and on and it doesn't stop and the guest is just like, "Okay, fine," and just picks the spot where it says "trip to North Korea." So yeah. It's just completely bonkers. What is your favorite cartoon character? Mine is Draculaura from Monster High. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Man, I'm really bad at like picking like, my favorite this and that. Only like a couple instances. Like, I'm just one of those people that has like a really tough time like picking out like my favorite movie or things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably say probably one of my favorite characters. I guess for this stream's sake, I'll just say happens to be Marco from Star vs. the Force of Evil, which I happen to be cosplaying because I relate a lot to his personality, and that, he's the safe kid, where it takes a lot for him to be taken out of his comfort zone. And I also feel like I'm often put in that position where I have to, like, like, help my friends, like, put their feet back on the ground and, like, stop them from getting into really overly, like, kind of strange situations. Or kind of like how I mentioned this before when I was interviewed by my friend Steven Shin, which you can go watch that interview on his channel. I believe his channel is let me see if he still uses the name I'm thinking of. It is, yeah, the Weirdy 8 channel. It's WEIRDY and the number 8, no spaces. And I said in an interview, one of my favorite things about Marco is when he was in the Running with Scissors episode, unexpectedly, he was put into the situation where he has to spend years hunting for all of Hekapu's, like, doppelgangers, and presumably, it looks like, he learned all sorts of, skills, like, learning how to use a sword, and he became, this buff future Marco with the abs that Star really likes. And so, and I felt like that summed up a lot of my college experience, because I went into college just thinking, oh, I'm going to be a photographer, but I didn't expect that it was going to teach me so much about finding a good career and multimedia skills. Like, college was where I made the decision that I was going to be like a social media. I wanted to get a job in social media, and it's where I started to learn about videos and video editing. So yeah, because when I entered college, one of my first jobs was to attend sports games for my college and, like, take sports pictures, which I still do. Sports photography is still my favorite genre of photography. But it was also where I started to do, like, videos of school events, or, like, I remember I did a video on the school protest where it was one of those protests for March for Our Lives, and I filmed that and things like that. And it was also where I learned about podcasting, and I actually did a little radio training. I would go on, like, this other radio station for the school and learn how to pick songs out. I mostly stuck to, like, a lot of, like, oldie songs. I remember picking out, like, a Rolling Stones song, and this, like, great teacher, who taught me quite a bit about, like, how to operate the computers and things like that. And I even remember going on the air just telling people that I was going to cosplay as Marco with the cape and also a beret, which I'm not sure how many people really got that, but it was still, I think it was still really cool that I got to mention Star versus the Force of Evil on that episode of the radio show. And so, yeah, I mean, these days I don't think I would really get into, like, radio or podcasting, because as I wouldn't be able to set a schedule, and my schedule is changing all the time. Even today, I wasn't sure if I could really do this stream today, because I thought that I would have to go and help out my mom with something. So yeah, but yeah, college, definitely, has, like, taught me a lot in terms of, like, finding confidence in myself. Of honestly, college, I credit college with being the place where I learned a lot of skills that I didn't expect. I associate high school more with being the place where I really gained confidence in myself. So I really feel lucky that I've got to learn all these experiences and meet some really amazing people who've taught me lessons about endurance and really believing in myself, and meeting people who believed in me far more than they believed in myself. So I think that's really one of the most valuable lessons I learned, like, going to high school and college. On top of, the most important thing is still getting that, high school diploma or majoring in journalism. But I think one of the really big things I got out of that was finding those people that believed in me far more than I ever could. So yeah, I think it's really one of the reasons why I would tell people, it's really great to stay in school. Yeah, there's people, who got far without graduating. Like, I think of Steve Jobs, for instance. He dropped out of Reed College after one semester, but I don't think 95% of people could, have that luck. And even then, it was still really challenging for jobs. Like, I remember watching his like graduation speech where he talked about how, it was tricky for him to get food and he had to like sleep on the floor of like his friends' like dorm rooms. So it's a very difficult life, and I'm really glad I went the route of like, going to school and things like that. I mean, different strokes for different folks, definitely. But yeah, I definitely think that there's far more lessons to learn in school on top of getting a good education. I mean, of course, if you're gonna study a profession like, law or medicine, then school is pretty much required. But I think that's why, I like watching content from more than just like people outside of like, I mean, more than just people within like the animation or video game communities. That's why I still like to follow things like Apple events or learn about the biography of Steve Jobs and that kind of thing. Yeah, I honestly did not expect that, like, I was gonna mention, like, all these kind of life lessons in the stream. I really hope that, like, for people watching, there's maybe a thing or two, you could learn, from what I discussed in terms of, like, my experiences, both from, like, my life outside of YouTube as well as running this YouTube channel. I would say, when people say, I remember, the YouTuber Jerry Rig Everything was once asked, one of his big suggestions was in terms of when is a good time to start your YouTube channel. And the time to start a YouTube channel is not when you have the best equipment. And Jesus Christ, hold on. I gotta change something in my computer sleep settings. Things, or else it's going to constantly go into like the screensaver mode. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. If you have any questions about something you want me to review or things like that, or any questions about even like some tips of like running a YouTube channel, I could help out with. I mean, especially with getting started. I mean, I can't help you get to 5,000 subs because I haven't gotten to 5,000 subs myself. But in terms of getting started, I really like talking to people about getting started and things like that. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, if I could find a setting to stop triggering that screensaver, but yeah, but one of the biggest lessons I've learned from YouTube itself, like putting aside like things I've learned from like my personal life and like my job outside of YouTube, is the best time to start a YouTube channel, honestly, it's not when you have like really good equipment. Like it's you have to start with what you have, like whether it's like what I'm doing right now with this HD Logitech webcam, or even like something like your iPhone. It's good enough to get you started. The reason I say that is because when you get started sooner, you start to get a feel for like your speaking style. Because I remember like back when I first started, or even like before I did YouTube, I still struggle with things like stammering and saying but it was like, I think it was even worse back then because I wasn't used to being on camera on a fairly regular basis. But now I'm teaching myself not to say as much and things like that. And I think another thing too is I basically just learned to embrace my speaking style, in that I see myself more as a person that likes to do things off the cuff and more like on and doing things as I go, rather than being that super prepared person. Because when I'm overly prepared, it tends to make me overthink. And even when I do prepare as much as I absolutely can, what ends up happening is people notice, like, oh, you could have done this, this, and this better. So I try to, I stop myself from overthinking in that way and just try to do things as well as I can. What's another thing? And also when you get started is you start to gauge, you know, you start to have a much better idea in terms of like, what are your limits as far as what you can talk about. And I think it was really useful when I saw that that most of the people liked when I talked about like animation or Nintendo. And another thing that really helped me out there was that I get to watch these episodes. I watch every Owl House, Infinity Train, Star episode before I review them. And I also, I mean, I don't do game reviews, but I play my Nintendo Switch and 3DS on a regular basis. Is that because I have like very tangible experience with those kind of things, it sort of like helps out with my, I guess you could say, brand equity in terms of being able to talk about a topic as much as I possibly can. Whereas when I did tech videos, I was mostly going off of what was on the spec sheet. And the problem with that was like whenever I made like very judgmental opinions in terms of what I think could work and what couldn't, is that it came off as like I sounded as if, it came off as, oh, I already know how to use the product, even though I technically didn't physically pick it up. And I think, that really hurt me in that aspect, which is kind of funny because I remember, I think it was with this iPad, I'll double check. I remember doing a video back when this particular iPad was coming out. I have an iPad 2018, the 6th generation. And I did a video saying, it was called "The New iPad has a faster processor and stylus support. What else?" I made it sound like as though I was really unimpressed. But what ended up happening was I used that iPad, and yes, this is my wallpaper with Mirai Toa and the 2 French Olympic mascots, is that this iPad, like this is what I often use to make my social media posts, sometimes schedule them. And I also use it to write my descriptions for YouTube videos. Like what ends up happening is while this computer is like encoding a video and putting it all together, I'm on this iPad typing up a description using Grammarly. So that's a big part of why I stopped covering tech. I will admit that doing those tech videos did get me a lot of views, but it didn't really help make my channel like look good, because I remember those videos used to get very divisive like to dislike ratios. Nick, would you say in terms of YouTube, I mostly stream PS4 games, or try to, but I will admit that I gotta stream more and I gotta get a PS4 mic and headset. Yeah, that could be really useful. I personally stick to my current setup. Mainly, it's just out of convenience, where I use these Earbeats headphones. These are just happen to be the ones that I have lying around, and this Zoom microphone. I remember the reason I used this Zoom microphone. It was actually one of the first pieces of equipment that was recommended when I started doing DSLR, like filming with DSLRs, those, big cameras. And it was because at the time I had a camera that didn't have a microphone. And so this person on YouTube, let me see if I could pull it up. I highly recommend checking out this video. It's really useful for those getting started, especially if you're going to do interviews. This is a fantastic way to get started. It is a video from Tech Junkie. It's called How to Get Around Lack of External Mic Jack Canon T1i DSLR. And in that video, the person explains, you could use the Zoom H1, this microphone, as your recorder. But as for picking up the audio, you can use the person in the video recommends this Audio-Technica lavalier mic, the kind you clip on to people. I can't find that on Amazon anymore, so I recommend picking up like a Sony. Sony makes a very affordable lavalier mic that I've used to interview people before. Yeah, I think that was the microphone we used to interview like Adam MacArthur and Eden Shearer. But yeah, yeah. So I highly recommend checking out Tech Junkie's video. It's one of the most useful videos I've seen as far as getting started with shooting YouTube videos. Is the 6th gen iPad much different than the 7th gen iPad? I have the 7th gen iPad, and I know it sounds like I'm bragging, but I swear I don't mean to brag. I don't have too much experience. The one upside of oh wait, you have the 7th generation. Is that the one with the bigger screen and the keyboard support? Because those are the two things that are missing on the 6th generation standard iPad. For that one, I actually have to use this clip-on Bluetooth keyboard to do typing. Although it does work with the Apple Pencil, but I don't have that because I don't really do like a lot of stylus-based drawing. I just tend to use the shape tool much more in like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop when I do get to do fan art. Nick said it's 2019 iPad, and I guess it has keyboard support. Like, if you look on the side of your iPad, is that the one with the three circles, the smart connector? Yeah. Although honestly, I'm kind of thinking maybe within the next year of possibly picking up the new iPad Air, the one with the sorry, I hit the microphone. The one with the near bezel-less screen because I heard it has the same processor that's in my iPhone 12 mini and I don't want to spend the money on the M1 iPad Pro. It costs too much and also I use a computer that has the M1 chip and it is a really good chip. I basically just need like a sort of backup tablet. This still works for what I need it to do, but it's getting really sluggish to a point where I can't even use like Photoshop, like Adobe Photoshop, the standard version for the iPad anymore. But yeah, Nick said, "Oh yeah, it has the three circles, but I don't have an Apple keyboard at the moment." Yeah, because I remember that's one of the big differences between the 2019 standard iPad and the 2018 version. I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to like just see if I could like start a new project on Photoshop for iPad, and I click create new, but I don't have that option. It's not showing that pop-up window where I could adjust the resolution of the project. Sometimes it does, but even then, it usually gets stuck there. So even though, yeah, I think this iPad will still get iOS updates for at least the next couple years. I'm kind of thinking of getting the iPad Air within the next year. So yeah, it's kind of amazing how like the stream has gotten really far with things like talking about the career advice I've learned, YouTube advice, and also talking about really fun things like the Eric Andre show. Nick, what PS4 games do you stream? And hello once again, Starco, Butterfly. What's your favorite Star episode? And Nick said, kind of out topic, but I need a new phone. It's a Galaxy S8 and it barely gets security updates. And I don't know why I'm telling this LOL. Well, I do like talking about smartphones every now and then. Yeah, it's probably because, let's see, Samsung, they've since released the S9, S10, I believe the S20, and then the S21. So, yeah, that's kind of what happens when smartphones start to get like 4 to 5 years. I mean, not that I'm sure the S8's a good phone. I have a friend who also has an S8, and I've tried it out briefly at a Best Buy, and it seems pretty cool. But yeah, are you considering getting a new phone like the S21? I remember the S21 was advertised quite a lot during the Olympics because Samsung, is a major Olympic sponsor. Nick said, I might stream Yakuza 0 soon, possibly, but I've mostly streamed Final Fantasy 15 so far, which is cool. Are you planning on getting a PS5? Because I know you talked to me about Final Fantasy 16 a bit, I remember it, and how um, it seems like it's going to be a much grittier, like, Final Fantasy. Nick said, honestly, I don't know which phone, but yeah, I'd love to get the S21. Star Butterfly says Apple is good. I mean, not to start like a smartphone war or anything, but yeah, I think people watching stream might have noticed like I've gone down the Apple route. It's just a matter of preference. That's all. I mean, I have really good friends that are like that are in the that prefer Windows and Samsung. So it's almost like the theme of this stream: different strokes for different folks. You know. Yeah. Oh my God. I just noticed. I got a message. A post saying that the CW's Powerpuff Girls live action series. I talked about it a bit. Has lost its Blossom. Yeah, the actor who's going to play Blossom, Chloe Bennett, has departed the series. Yeah, I heard things have gotten really rocky for that project. I remember this part where the article says the CW decided to redevelop and reshoot the pilot after it was aired for executives. So, I mean, granted, they're not like officially saying, "Oh, that's it." But when a show is going through this much trouble, it really kind of makes me concerned about its future. But yeah, I mean, I still like to hope that somebody could come up with a Powerpuff Girls show where, even if it doesn't have Craig McCracken, it could turn out good. But it seems like a lot of Powerpuff Girls related stuff that has come out since Craig McCracken left hasn't lived up to par. Like like yeah, I mean, like I remember I've talked a lot about that 2016 reboot of the Powerpuff Girls and wasn't very good. I mean, I'm still skeptical of the live action show, to be honest. Not that not that like I'm not one of those people that like instantly shoots down something if it's like an animated show turned live action. It's just that the way they're going about it doesn't really seem up my street. Although I remember doing like a stream where I talked about it um um with Gabby, my friend Gabby, and she was saying, well, maybe it's like a Doom Patrol situation. So if it's that, then I at least want to give it that chance. I mean, I'm glad that she was on here to talk about her perspective, and it wasn't just another like person on YouTube saying, oh, I hate this idea, blah 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 blah. Yeah, but I'll probably do a separate video talking about the news that um that the actor playing Blossom is leaving the series, because all this put together, it sounds like the show is like on really shaky ground at best. If it does come out, I'll still give it the benefit of the doubt. I'll still check it out and review it just like when what I did with the Powerpuff Girls 2016. Just because I don't want to be a mindless hater, and I also don't want to be like that person that just like hates on things just to get the clicks. Or even the other extreme where I only talk about like nice things and things like that. So honestly, yeah, I've been really itching to do another news video, and since I haven't talked about the latest on that Powerpuff Girls show for the CW, it's a very likely candidate for the next video I'll do. I mean, if I don't have time to talk about it tonight, then I'll do it after I do our Owl House review tomorrow, where I'm gonna discuss Eclipse Lake with Gabby. Like I said, I like the episode. I think the reason I thought it was really intense was because I really like got into the whole dilemma that's going on with Amity and Hunter, where Amity is still learning the lesson that there are going to be people out there where you don't need to like please and do all this stuff. And with Hunter, I think down the road he's going to switch sides and go over to like Luce, but we could see that he's still really dedicated to like helping out his uncle, especially in the situation where he's like competing with Kikimura. So it's just, yeah, it's just like real like craziness. I remember Gabby was saying like Kikimura came off as like this really like unhinged character. Like even when we were watching the episode, I was like, she gonna turn into Azula? And Gabby was like, ooh, it seems that way. So yeah, I don't know. Although, wouldn't it be weird if Kikimura turned into that person? It was like, you're banished, you're banished, you're banished. Let me see some more of the comment sections. Oh yeah, Final Fantasy 16 gets. Okay, yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, okay, so I switched routers, so hopefully it doesn't get too crazy again. Nick said that you like live action anime except Death Note. Yeah. Alright, so I think I'm gonna end things off in case my internet starts going down again. But I really appreciate the turnout. I'm really glad that you all have come out to celebrate the Bloodmoon Bobby's channel's 4th anniversary. We've come really far, and I really appreciate you all being along for my journey, because it not only means a lot to me in terms of like it's being a it surprisingly has taught me a lot in terms of like career and side hustles, but I'm just really happy to have a place where I could discuss animation and video games with you all. And like I said, I especially enjoy when and I think that I've done really great things, including like helping like people speak up about their honest opinions about animation and video games, as well as introducing people who may be new to the community, because even like watching one of the videos really means a lot to me. So yeah, so so I am looking forward to moving forward with this like idea of like spreading my passion of animation and video games, and inviting really as many people along for the journey, as long as they're up for it. I'm glad. Like I said, I don't want this channel to become like a channel where it's like only for animation and video game fans by animation and video game fans, because I think it not only like helps the people watching to go outside of their comfort zone and check out all different kinds of content, but I think it also helps the YouTuber themselves. So yeah, so thank you all for checking out the stream. If you enjoyed the stream and you're new here, give it a like and subscribe to the Blood Moon Bobby YouTube channel. More great content is coming soon. Tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Pacific time, midnight Eastern time. Things could change, but we're targeting that time frame to discuss the Owl House episode, Eclipse Lake. Me and my friend Gabby had a really good time discussing that episode. So until then, this has been Blood Moon Bobby. Here's to another 4 years on this YouTube channel, and I will see you all later.